1. Mission 1. Operation, it's your world, so share it. A stupid mission, with a stupid, overly long title, and bringing peace, love, and video content to the civilized universe was equally as insipid. Choosing a third-world planet like Synthra was even dumber, worsened by the fact that Commander Video and Tech actually had the nerve to crash on this post-nuclear dump. Tech was truly grateful that no one of relevance could see him. Star Navigator Third Class and super genius, probably the greatest Ingenian mind this side of the Elysium galaxy, slushing through a desert night with a muscle boy neophyte for a commander and some peon Synthra native leading the way. Goddamn dump wasn't even equipped with a moon to help a fellow see where he's heading. Video, we've been traipsing around this stupid desert for hours. I say we abort this mission. The neophyte only smiled at Tech and continued walking, as casually as if it were day. Tech's state-of-the-art silver spacesuit was barely keeping his reproductive organs from freezing off. But this half-naked neophyte seemed as bothered by the desert's low night temperatures as he was by common sense. They finally stopped, the sinner several meters ahead of them and out of earshot. Let's go back to the cruiser, Video. I seriously doubt that this fool sinner has any intention of feeding us. Patience has its virtues, Techie. Patience, my gluteus. You're supposed to be the stupid commander. Why did you let this gluteus surfer kidnap us? Shut the hell up, alien pukes. The gluteus surfer, his black pleathered back to Tech and Video, appeared to be having difficulty with his compass watch. Tech suspected that the sinner also has difficulty tying his boots and counting to 3. Solomon has not kidnapped us. Video leaned over Tech, black eyes conspiratorial. Did you not hear him when he said that he would help us complete our mission by taking us to the presidential palace? As slaves, moron, as slaves. I am certain that the term slaves is only a sinful colloquialism for friends. I don't know who's stupider. Tech jabbed a finger into Video's overly muscled chest. You for being so naive, or me for signing on to your ship? Goddess, the things I do for money and staying out of prison. Finished with his watch, the gluteus surfer swung an obscenely long, plastic weapon at Tech and Video. Liquidator, he called it. Its impractical design was reminiscent of a primitive braid of rope. Let's go. Even in the dark, Tech could tell this guy was ugly. And tell your pet to be quiet. What pet? Dipstick's dark, overly fleshy face glowed with confusion. Yeah, who do you think you're calling a pet, you sinner? Tech wished the Synthra native would stop shining that electro torch in their faces. I'm from the planet Ingenia, so show some respect, plebe. Fingerprints suddenly marring his lovely face, Tech briefly pondered if a bitch slap was the method used for showing superiors respect on this planet. Commander Dipstick propped him up, so Tech didn't fall. Tech pushed Video away, panic-stricken that the gluteus surfer might have permanently damaged his beautiful black and blue face. Blood? Goddess, the primate had actually broken his nose. 2. Solomon, please explain what you mean by pet. Video held up his wrist like a broken wing. I'm afraid the binary language translator gem on my bio wristband was damaged in the crash. The sinner gave Tech and Video his back. Keep your mouth shut and your feet moving, alien puke. The gluteus surfer set the pace. 2 obnoxiously huge liquidators were strapped to his too wide back, and his primitive electro-torch barely cut through the desert night. Tech glanced at Commander Space Cadet. The neophyte fool was actually humming. This is all your fault. Tech whipped out an antibiotic tissue from his technician utility belt and massaged his nose. If you weren't confusing me with all those dense instructions, I would have never lost concentration and hit that stupid garbage satellite. Then we wouldn't be stranded on this ridiculously dry planet with this idiot gluteus surfer. Tech's superior ingenian, artificially enhanced aura receptors felt it coming, but the sinner was too fast for him to get out of harm's way while simultaneously shoving Video into his place. They hit the cold sand hard, the gluteus surfer on top, and Tech, oh so unfortunately, on the bottom, a cold, hard liquidator nozzle shoved against his delicate black and blue features. Goddess, the sinner was about to pull the trigger and extinguish the greatest ingenian mind of Tech's generation. Instead, Tech heard music. No, a voice. Commander Dipstick's voice, disgustingly warm and pleasant. Tech's lungs expanded as the gluteus surfer lifted his fat, pleather-clad body off of Tech's perfectly proportioned, non-existent chest. Tech stumbled quickly to his feet, anxious to see the neophyte get his gluteus beat.
Solomon, this act of aggression is unnecessary.
The sinner's eyes glowed an evil titania blue.
Who the hell do you think you are? Why, Commander Video.
The gluteus surfer responded with two primitive but impressive punches to Dipstick's fat head. With a target that big, who could miss? But this fool did, so the sinner tried crouching down and sweeping his foot under Video. Video jumped up, easily avoiding the sinner's big foot. The gluteus surfer smiled darkly, as if pleased by the challenge. His liquidators dropped to the sand with a muffled thump as he calmly stripped off his cobalt-black pleather jacket, revealing a tank top tight enough to rival Video's reflective short shorts. Tech did some quick probability calculations to assess the chances of these two losers fatally wounding one another, leaving him free to go back to the Star Cruiser and claim ownership, then get the hell off this cesspool of a planet. Tech's skull-cap brain teaser prompted him that instead of watching these idiots smash one another, this might be his best chance to escape. So Tech ran for it. Dipstick could die alone. 2 microseconds later, Tech was on his stomach, eating crunchy sand.
My friend is hurt. Just like you're about to be.
Tech cursed the heavens. He would trip over the one rock in this entire, stupid, sinful desert. The gluteus surfer swung a heavy foot at Dipstick's face and missed. Tech didn't understand why the sinner didn't just use his weapons and liquidate the neophyte.
Solomon,
Video continued, dodging.
Why are you treating us in such a manner?
I found you, Puke. You're mine now, and I can treat you any damn way I like.
Video's dark eyes lost their idiot gleam for a second.
And if there's time,
the gluteus surfer said, dusting himself off,
I'll plunder your buried treasure before I sell you.
Tech's guts started to growl, not from hunger pangs or the gluteus surfer's pathetic performance. Tech's binary language virus translator was telling him that Dipstick was saying something incredibly stupid.
Friend Solomon, why take what we offer willingly?
Tech watched in horror as Dipstick bowed his fat, curly head.
We are ready to follow you now. Quietly.
Video turned his imbecilic grin on Tech.
Techie, are your bodily functions still functioning?
No thanks to you. And it's Tech, you musclehead pacifist. Video tried helping Tech up, but his navigator slapped his bloated hands away. Let Dipstick try to bring Lightwave Ultra Video in peace to this pimple of a planet. Tech would sell these worms some massive and destructive technology on the sly. Mad technology will, of course, destroy them. Dipstick would have to go too. Technician Union Bylaw 7. No witnesses. 3. Dawn in the city of Chromenia. Petra could see everything from her tower's tinted windows. Almost everything. Considering that space in Chromenia remained as scarce as natural resources, Petra should have been satisfied with the 2 spacious floors that she called home. But when had she ever been satisfied? All that was required of her was to head the last of Synthra's armed forces and make certain that no one assassinated President Milcom but her. And, of course, there was the small matter of dealing with the aliens. Petra turned her attention to Casimir, reflecting so perfectly in her smoky green window. Naked from the waist down, her accountant sat motionless. A little slower than necessary, Petra turned her back on the sunrise and faced Casimir. His rays and eyes were eating her up, slowly dropping to Petra's firm, white pectoralis majors, past her creamy and tight young abdomen and dangerous curves, stopping at her blonde vulva, which still held unimaginable and exquisite diversions. "You're disgusting," she hissed, spreading her legs to give Casimir a better view. He licked his thin lips and winked at her, his signal for Petra to come to him. She hesitated, making him wait, simply for the pleasure of making him wait, testing his patience. Devil, he was sumptuous. Curls as red as the sun, smoldering dark eyes, nice and hard sculptured abdomen. Petra soon found herself on her knees, looking up at Casimir, just out of reach. Casimir gave her another deadly wink. "Are the eavesdropping dampeners activated?" "Of course." Casimir's soft voice betrayed annoyance. Strong hands clasped Petra's head and tried to force her down. But the Minister Supreme could not be forced, so he released her. Petra rose with studied grace and moved towards the bar, giving Casimir another view of her juicy gluteus maximus. She only poured herself a drink. Casimir existed for her pleasure, not the other way around. She worked hard and killed many to become Supreme Prime Minister of Peace, and sacrificed. What does a male like Casimir know of sacrifice? I wonder if my ministers have found the alien invaders yet. We both know that Vicar Deux will fail. Casimir removed himself from the couch and strode over to the bar and caressed Petra from behind. Then she will be expunged. Petra's sigh was genuine. Casimir took her glass and gulped down the synthetic wine. That's what you wanted in the first place. Naturally, the wench lusted after Petra's station almost as deeply as she quivered for Milcom's presidency. A moist and scorching hot tongue darted into her left ear, attacking her. She pulled Casimir closer. Do you think Milcom knows about the aliens? Casimir's tongue grew more demanding. You gave strict orders no one should know about them. Petra extracted herself from Casimir's embrace by twisting a much surprised wrist. She released it immediately, not wishing to cause him too much pain. Yet. Don't be simple. Milcom has spies everywhere. As do you. Casimir rubbed his wrist and forced a pink smile. I suppose I'll have to lead a peace force and capture the alien filth myself. Such sweet plans I have for them. Incredible. Casimir's laugh bordered on disrespect. The Minister Supreme believes in fantasies. I believe in prophecies, and in my domination complete. She slid a teasing hand past Casimir's pulsating white neck and grabbed a red curl. Will you assist me? I will do anything for you, Petra. Truly? Anything, Casimir added carefully. Prove it. That's what I'm doing. He pulled her hard against himself. Petra returned his deep kiss with a heat of her own, feeling her supple body being forced up against the bar's cold metal top. Her free hand found what was hidden, her mini liquidator. Casimir pulled away, but the confidence soon returned to the raisin eyes. You said you would do anything for me. You're kidding. Petra smiled, then fired. Casimir let out a yelp, but smartly kept his eyes on Petra instead of the melting black pleather sofa behind him. 4. So what are you waiting for? Permission to kill me? Petra returned Casimir's scornful stare with a chilling look of her own. What I'm waiting for. She tossed him the mini liquidator.
is for you to shoot off the part of you that I lust after the most. You're serious? You said anything. As you wish.
Hands trembling, Casimir slowly placed the liquidator's nozzle against his genitalia. The sad eyes looked up at Petra, pleading.
I'm waiting. I obey, bitch.
Casimir fired 3 times. At such close range, Petra should have been a steaming pile of liquid. Instead, her blood-red lips pooled into a cruel smile. The hard slap that slashed Casimir's face seconds later, however, did not surprise him.
Nice to hear you finally say what you really think about me, spy.
Casimir threw a hard punch at Petra's sternum, but the Minister Supreme spun out of harm's way easily enough and rewarded him with a chop to the back of his neck for the error. Casimir recovered surprisingly fast for an amateur, his hands snatching up the forgotten wine bottle. An adept backhand against the bar's edge gave him enough jagged glass to really do some damage. Petra backed away from him until she felt the wall behind her. Casimir slashed his new weapon at her midsection. His third mistake. His second was securing such an unreliable weapon, which focused most of his attention on using it. She grabbed Casimir's wrist and plowed his fist into the wall behind her. The bottle, an offending hand, shattered nicely. Petra followed with a hard uppercut to Casimir's perfect chin. Casimir, legs a bit wobbly, still managed to shove his forearm against her tender throat. He pushed harder. Petra was starting to feel lightheaded, a bad sign. She kneed him in the stomach, then slammed both his ears with her fists. Casimir staggered for a moment, then folded to the floor. Petra wiped the blood from her sensuously full lips and studied her ex-accountant. Even unconscious, Casimir was beautiful. Her fatigued gaze lowered to the fallen, broken bottle. She had to be careful. Only one blow will do. The Minister Supreme's right hand remained over Casimir's mouth for another minute, to save them both the embarrassment of him begging for mercy. Petra forced the glass deeper into Casimir's abdomen as his body convulsed, the smell of fresh blood racing through her yearning nostrils. A Milcom spy extinguished, and a prophecy reaching fruition, all in one refreshing morning. Petra would use the aliens to tap into the forces of evil incarnate and conquer what was left of this wretched world. Petra gently lowered herself onto Casimir's now peaceful face. All her life, Petra dreamed of being Queen of Synthra. But for now, all that mattered was one last tryst with her dead ex-accountant. 5. Bored, dehydrated, and stuck with 2 aliens who wouldn't shut the hell up, Solomon still made good time. City of Chromenia, hub of world commerce and cheap horizontal refreshment, an illegal trader's wet dream, even at dawn. Solomon despised everything about the place, except the supplies and discreet lip service he would get in exchange for the city's only non-synthesized food, desert lizard. Hard to find, harder to kill. But this time, he was bringing a different kind of game to town, and his price a lot higher. Solomon shoved the half-black, half-blue alien and its master towards the city's 4-story high gates. Black and Blue hadn't shut its scrawny face since Solomon found it and its master back in the desert. Not being able to land a single punch on the tall alien didn't improve Solomon's mood any. The alien was just lucky, and he was just tired. Not that he believed these pukes were actual aliens, as opposed to some failed government experiment, but Solomon was sure there were enough gullible traitors who would buy into the lie. 2 peace ministers, big liquidator rifles and small pectoral majors ready, blocked the city's main gates. Who are the bitches in the tacky, reflective yellow uniforms? Black and Blue's voice reminded Solomon of a faulty synthesizer, looped in a perpetual whine. Peace ministers. Solomon stepped past the scrawny pseudo-alien.
They're the Minister Supreme's evil minions, and they'll snuff us if they think you're aliens."
"But we are aliens to Synthra, friend Solomon."
The tall alien wasn't a talker like his pet, but when he did speak, it bordered on the absurd or sounded like a bad radio ad.
"Keep your lying puke mouth shut," Solomon said, "and try acting like sinners."
They stopped 13 meters away from the ministers. Solomon attempted a smile and raised both palms to the ministers. He couldn't judge their mood, since their face masks were set on black. The shorter whore minister spoke up first.
"Got a pass?" "Usually us desert traders are welcomed here."
Solomon swept an arm at the aliens behind him.
"Or don't you want these smelly pukes for your slave market?"
Black and Blue snorted. "Look who's talking. At least I wash with water, you larva-infested dingleberry of a gluteus surfer." The ministers snickered. Solomon spun around lightning fast and popped Black and Blue aside the head with his liquidator. It cried out a second time when it landed on its bony shoulder. Solomon left it to its master's care and stepped up to the peace ministers. The short minister leveled her liquidator dead at his chest. "These wouldn't be the alien slime the Minister Supreme would give up 100 of her ovaries and wealth untold for."
No.
The minister looked up to her taller but equally reflective friend. They both looked over Solomon's broad shoulder at the two strange-looking creatures behind him, then shrugged their shoulders. The short one held out a yellow-gloved hand. Solomon slapped it with 50 denarii. The hand stayed put. "Maybe you should offer them your stylishly out-of-date pleather jacket." Black and Blue was hiding behind its master. The ministers looked at each other, then shook their yellow helmets.
"Maybe I should give them your belt."
Solomon's eyes never left the trigger-happy peace ministers. "I'd rather die 1,000 deaths than give up one notch of my family heirloom technician utility belt." The taller alien whipped out a couple of small brown cubes and joined Solomon.
"Perhaps." The tall alien's black eyes were sincere. "The ministers can be swayed by 10 switch-and-save documentary cubes of the life and times of the Manwinian hill ant."
The ministers digested that one for a couple of seconds, then slapped each other's backs, laughing uncontrollably. Not a bad way to die. 6. President Milcom lowered his glorious presidential gluteus maximus onto his favorite office chair. At the last second, he decided that his clean oval desk was more inviting. At the same instant, 8 5-inch silver spikes popped up from the abandoned seat, almost hitting their mark. Milcom and his Supreme Prime Minister of Peace did not appear to notice. Milcom stationed himself haphazardly on the edge of his desk as he nibbled on conquered dragons and half-listened to Petra droning on about activity reports. The dragons, lush circles and bite-size, reminded him of his Minister Supreme. She, too, was filled with delicious, artificial sweetness. And death, which would come in a matter of hours if you did not chase the dragons down with a blue or some other caffeinated miracle drug. Naturally, due to the stress of his rank, Milcom found his blue pills indispensable, like his Minister Supreme. Swallowing another dragon, Milcom praised the gods that he had enough sense to insist that Petra read all daily activity reports topless. How else could he survive the tediousness of it all?
"Food production is down 12%, city overpopulation up 6%, and military spending has doubled in the past 2 cycles.
Milcom covered a yawn with the back of his hand.
"Change the reports to read, food production has risen 14%, city population is declining, and we have cut military spending in half. Then transmit it to the radio news feed."
Milcom, 66.5 inches of muscle and purple robes, scratched his mons pubis with deserved self-satisfaction. His ascension to presidency surprised more than a few sinners. People had always underestimated him because of his lack of height, especially former President Marzil the Miserable.
But everyone respected him now. Yes, or at least feared him. Assassination was the most favored method for achieving political power on Synthra. The only drawback came to play if any assassination could be traced back to you. If caught, your home would be made a dung heap, your immediate family enslaved, or forced into the armed services if deemed female, and you would be forced to wear flower print robes and matching socks for the rest of your life. Even critics like Petra had to admit that his ability to get Marzill's own daughter to do the slicing bordered on brilliance. A wheezing hiss brought Milcom out of his reverie. Petra stepped easily out of Circe's way, and his pet snake oozed its evil way towards him. Always fascinated by its beauty, Milcom observed Circe curl its way up his small leg, around his midsection, finally looping itself around his broad neck. He feted a plump gragon. Alcohol consumption is up 38%. Anti-government protests have increased threefold, and conjugal diseases are on the rise. Milcom lifted his presidential self from the edge of his desk, with Circe in tow. A slush of green acid plummeted from the ceiling and ate through a good quarter of his desk. Milcom paced and cooed at Circe as if nothing happened. Long ago, he and Petra had agreed that she had free rein to attempt his liquidation, but only during their morning briefings. This accomplished 3 things. It kept his Minister Supreme sharp and hungry. Their daily ritual also allowed Milcom to maintain his survival skills. 3, it was fun besting the bitch every single day. Unfortunately, the aliens that Petra so casually avoided mentioning might upset their delicate dance of power. Sad, really. Milcom knew he could find another Supreme Minister of Peace, almost as competent as Petra, but one who would also make a delightful playmate for Circe? Too hard to come by. His Minister Supreme spun on her military heel and headed for the door. Milcom called after her, "Are you quite finished?" Milcom leaned over his desk for a blue, hidden in an ornate silver casket, which saved his throat, but not his oval window, from a steel dart. Petra slipped the blow tube back into her back pocket, smiling flirtatiously. "Yes, I'm finished."
Good. So, tell me about the aliens.
The Minister Supreme's smile remained unconcerned, but had shifted to dishonesty. After 5 cycles of studying this female, Milcom knew she was anything but unconcerned, and quite possibly very dead in the near future. He smiled back at her and waited for her to explain. 7. With the rising sun breaking the skyline, it was easy for Tech's superior 3D enhanced Ingenian vision to see a good 150.2 meters ahead. City of Chromenia. Ugly. Ultra ugly. Almost as ugly as the brown rags the gluteus surfer stole from 2 sinner slobs and then forced Tech and Video to cover themselves with. The stench hit Tech first. Yes, the pollution percentage was within acceptable limits, but the body odor quotient was way in the red. Tech willed his metal skullcap brain teaser to minimize all olfactory functions to 20%. Sinners, dressed like miniature tents, hustled and bustled, cursed, bargained, and traded blows. Strictly third world. Tech considered the killing he'd make, selling these losers some mad technology. His left coronial lobe tingled at the possibilities. No, it was the binary language translation virus burning in his gut. "Are you certain, friend Solomon, the ministers you shot will be okay?" The gluteus surfer ignored Video. It was easy in this dump. Barely the 5th hour, and what appeared to be a city square on steroids was already infested with sinful life, probably to beat the desert heat. Tech's designer silver spacesuit kept his body temperature near normal, but he had left his helmet back at the Star Cruiser, so there wasn't much he could do about sweating. He took a quick peek at Video, who left absolutely nothing to the imagination with those pink shorts of his. If there was any justice to be had on this dustbin of a planet, the neophyte would suffer a mean sunburn. The local vermin pretty much ignored them as the gluteus surfer maneuvered the 3 of them through the crowd. Grubby traders and haggling buyers, seemed to line every non-available centimeter of space. Too bad none of them could come up with a rainmaker. After 2 nuclear wars, Synthra certainly needed one. The statue! Video pointed to a 2-story giant foot which dominated the center of the square. It does not belong.
Yeah, it does.
The Gluteus Surfer's smile was surprisingly white.
It symbolizes the heart of this city perfectly.
Tech frowned as the sinner's evil blue eyes cascaded over Video's outrageously muscled frame before he continued plowing an unsteady path forward. There was barely enough room to walk. Tech hoped that no stupid jerk bumped into his wounded shoulder. Video stopped short. I feel... The Gluteus Surfer and Tech stopped to see what Video felt like. Tech yawned as he observed his commander slide his bloated hands over a face as brown as the desert, past his curly head, then spread his muscle boy arms to the heavens.
I feel warmth.
Maybe it's because it's 32 Cs, Tech suggested, and climbing. The Gluteus Surfer's frown matched Tech's.
Techie, we've been traveling in deep space for so many light years.
Video let out a pleased sigh.
Does it not feel wonderful to feel the sun's love upon your face, even a red sun? Your sun isn't red?
The Gluteus Surfer's attention remained on Video's gluteus.
No, stardust blue.
Tech could not wrap his magnificent brain around this asinine conversation. He'd been beaten, insulted, and his beautiful nose broken. And this fool had the nerve to be happy. Tech looked down, and suddenly he was happy too. To blazes with your stupid sun! I think this street is made out of black zirconia. Tech snatched a scanner from his technician utility tool belt and took a reading. No doubt about it. It's 99% zirconia.
A worthless stone.
The stupid Gluteus Surfer caught Tech and Video by the arm. Tech's sore arm, of course.
We're wasting time. If these vendors suspect for even 1 second you're neophytes, we'll be bombarded with cheap baubles and transistor radios.
Hey, he's the neophyte! A swarm of pushy, poorly dressed sinners started clawing at Tech and Video.
Cheap transistor radios, cheap for all neophytes.
Cheap baubles, impress your friends. The Gluteus Surfer could no longer clear a path for them. He was losing control. Tech pretended to stumble and stepped hard on the Gluteus Surfer's big foot. This won him some mumbled curses and promises of a slow death. It also gave Tech the opportunity to break free from the sinner's clammy grip. The crowd and babbling merchants carried Video and Tech away like a warm tidal wave. Soon Video was almost out of sight, as was that creepy Gluteus Surfer. First, Tech would steal as much street pavement as he could carry, then find his way back to the cruiser and blast off. Hopefully that stupid computer would have the cruiser fixed by then. But all that mattered now was freedom. Delicious, rich Tech freedom. 8. No, please, Mr. Gluteus Surfer, Tech begged. We won't try to escape again, honest. Incredibly enough, Tech had made a miscalculation. An Ingenian actually making a mistake. And him a Star Navigator 3rd class and super genius. The only Star Academy pupil to break into the dean's office undetected and plant a shock cushion underneath the dean's chair. Even more embarrassing, Tech had made 3 miscalculations. 1, he had failed to lose himself in this impossible crowd, though the ridiculous flower print tent he was wearing didn't help. 2, his attempts at getting Dipstick trampled to death failed miserably. 3, he couldn't cut off a decent chunk of black zirconia from the street, with all these plebeian sinners bumping into him constantly. Now Tech could only watch as the Gluteus Surfer shackled him to some stupid hovercraft parking meter. The sadist dropped a coin into its slot and disappeared down the street, leaving him chained to Dipstick. What are you smiling for, stupid? We're about to be sold as slaves, and with my luck, we'll be sold as a set.
I fear your wounds have put you in a bad humor, Techie.
Tech could have choked Dipstick. His look as much as told Video so, but that preposterous smirk never left the desert-colored face.
Techie, is it not obvious? Solomon's playing a game with us. I read all about it before we came to Synthra.
I believe it's called hide and go pee.
If it means you get whacked, I'm game.
No, silly.
Video used his free hand to test his bio wristband.
Solomon hides, and we are supposed to find him.
Intriguing. Please elaborate, O Commander, how we're supposed to find him while shackled to this parking meter. Video's smile grew wide.
Well, first we have to free ourselves.
3 lights flashed in sequence on Video's wristband. Tech had to admit that Video's bioband did sport some nice colors. Too bad it wasn't good for much else.
Darn! The only thing that seems to be working is the translator and log feature.
Video's fat fingers continued fondling his wristband. You mean Trick can still log everything we do, but that stupid computer can't help us?
Techie, must you insist upon looking upon everything in a harsh light? Maybe my band's crystal simply needs time to recharge.
Goddess, where's a primitive liquidator when you need one? If Tech's wounds didn't kill him, Video's stupidity would. So how do we get loose, genius?
Why not try your sonic monkey wrench on the lock?
Lost it somewhere in the middle of the desert.
Then there's not much else we can do.
Video's beady eyes seemed disappointed.
I suppose we'll have to do it the easy way and use Solomon's key.
A tiny metal key appeared in his hand. Tech was so happy he could have kissed Dipstick's dirty hand. After failing his 6th pickpocket test, Tech had long ago given the neophyte up for anything useful, reminding Tech that even morons can learn. Eventually. 9. Video wanted to go into the convenience shop to look for that idiot Gluteus Surfer, but with a couple of groans and a few pratfalls, Tech convinced him that they should seek out a healer first. Naturally, Tech's dire physical plight appealed to Dipstick's neophyte compassions. Sucker. Yeah, Tech's tummy still felt queasy, and his brilliant brain hurt, and his nose, goddess. He didn't even want to think about his beautiful broken nose. An earlier diagnostic also confirmed that his left shoulder ligaments were torn, but Ingenians have always been made out of tough metal. Some caffeine and a shot of glucose, and Ingenians could keep designing spacecrafts and weapons of mass destruction until doomsday. So why did he feel so exhausted? Tech wasn't even 100% positive that those pratfalls were completely fake. Maybe he should do a self-diagnostic for synthroviral infections. He was, after all, surrounded by germ-infested natives.
My, these streets are crowded, Video muttered. It's like being smothered in a mountain of dirty laundry. Like being a lone probe in an asteroid shower. Like...
Enough, Tech gasped, crumpling over. I think I'm going to puke. And he did. He aimed for Video's dusty white boots. He succeeded in obtaining a satisfactory slush of brown and white regurgitation with juicy chunks of caffeine mixed in. This made Tech feel a little better, until he realized that the boots he had blemished were his own. Goddess! If Tech didn't know better, he'd swear there was some stupid guardian angel looking out for this imbecile.
Look, Techie!
Video pointed to a dark, beat-up storefront.
Perhaps we'll find a healer there.
Tech found he was too weak to protest, as Video slung his good arm around a set of overly broad deltoids and propped the rest of him up against his perspiring, neophyte body. The ostentatious red and white color symbols on the window were impossible to translate. Tech's binary virus and Video's bio wristband were useless for anything but verbal communications. They went inside. A gush of cheap booze, rowdy noise, and smoke struck them full force. Commander Dipstick had brought them to a tavern. Barely dawn and the dive was already packed. Spiritual healer, huh? Video shrugged his massive shoulders. The tavern's post-dawn inebriated yammering came to a dead halt. All eyes were on Tech and Video. They had ditched the flower print rags, so the heathens were undoubtedly wondering what a brilliant stud like Tech was doing with a muscle boy in pink shorts. Dipstick manhandled Tech into a vacant stool by the bar. Tech tried to stay balanced on the wobbly stool, while his brain-dead commander leaned over the metal bar and addressed the barkeeper.
Friend, can you tell me where we can find a healer?
The barkeeper, lips prostitute red, raised a painted eyebrow. No. Her eyes smiled fake promises, but I can show you where to relieve yourself. Oh.
Tech rolled his eyes. Are all sinners so smooth? The barkeeper slid a prickly finger down Video's overly muscled chest, pausing only at the black amulet which held the 2 straps that formed an X across his naked chest.
Nice. Looks like some kind of sun, she said, black eyes coy. Where did you steal it from?
Steal? Dipstick smiled. Neophytes do not steal. It is made of living rock from my homeworld, Neophytes. My mommy gave it to me. The barkeeper's smile faltered. A puff of black smoke exploded in front of Tech and Video. The other patrons looked more annoyed than surprised, and immediately went back to drinking and groping one another. But anyone nearby was coughing up sulfur, except Video. A hag with luggage under her eyes and a scarlet dish rag on her too wide head now stood in front of Tech and Video. Are you the healer that I sensed? Video said.
No, I'm the goddamn Tooth Fairy.
Well, if you please, Tooth Fairy, we are seeking a healer. The old hag inspected Thunderbrain carefully, not sure if he was making fun of her. The gray eyes targeted Tech next. It was obvious she didn't know what to make of him or Dipstick.
Are you the aliens our good-for-nothing Minister Supreme is looking for?
The old hag was alabaster ugly, and her voice raspy. I am.
Nobody's interested.
Tech looked past the dried-up sinner and focused on an interesting game with sticks and balls playing out in the center of the small tavern. 10. I'm from the planet Ingenia, Tech said, hoping to bore the bitch into going away so they could find a real healer. She didn't.
Another planet? Ingenia, even. Ha!
The gray eyes didn't seem very impressed.
I guess that makes you ingenuine.
Ingenious, sinner. It makes me ingenious. Tech tried to position himself a little more respectably, but the effort was wasted on the cheap metal stool. And this thing is Commander.
I know who he is. I'm psychic.
Then you probably know we are seeking medical assistance.
Of course.
Video turned to his technician with a look of surprise. Is she not incredible? She knows exactly who we are and what we want.
I told you I'm psychic. Now give me what I want.
The fat hag held out her sweaty, sinful hand.
Grease my palm, alien.
I am sorry, Video said, dark eyes dripping with actual sympathy. We left all of our lubricants back on our Lightwave Star Cruiser. Tech didn't have to look at Video to know that he was slipping a hand into those pink short shorts of his. How his hand, or anything else, could fit in there was undoubtedly a scientific miracle. Will you accept intergalactic coupons? The hag let loose a gob of spit at Video's fleshy face, but it fell short and landed on Tech's metal skull cap. Hey, bitch! The hag ignored Tech and aimed a crooked finger at Video.
Do not mock powers you don't understand, Dark One.
Suddenly, the hag had an incredibly unbelievable accent, worthy of any second-rate B-Hollow actress.
Give me that for payment.
Tech clasped his right hand over his mons pubis instinctively. What kind of technician do you think I am?
The belt, swine! Give me the belt, then I will help you.
Tech crossed his legs and held on to his utility belt. He only used his right hand to protect what was his. The left hand didn't seem to want to obey, or rather, his stupid shoulder. Never, Tech said. My mother gave this to me for my 16th name day. I'd rather die than part with it. I'd rather face 10,000 neophyte speeches or a horde of draconian dragons than part with one notch of my technician utility belt.
Very well.
The hag pulled out something that looked like a telecommunicator from her plaid gown.
I'm calling the local slave trader.
No, not the local slave trader. Tank the stupid belt. Never worked right anyway, and I hate my mother too. Tech pressed the only red button on his belt. The belt fell to the ground with a wounded thump. Tech kicked it towards the spiritual healer. She had it in her grubby, filthy hands in microseconds. The gray eyes examined it carefully. The witch even bit one of the gemstones. A broken smile crossed her flabby, fat, wrinkled face. Now please help my friend. The hag grabbed Video's wrist instead. He reclaimed it with a gentle but firm tug. My friend first. Tech secretly hoped the hag would slap Dimwit with her telecommunicator. Instead, she just looked at him, as if she had missed something the first time. She tossed 2 blue capsules at Tech. Video gave her a curious look.
It will kill the pain and stop any internal bleeding. Now let me read your palm.
She could try reading Video's microscopic brain cells for all Tech cared. He snatched up the capsules from his lap and shoved them into his small mouth. Then a thought struck him. What if the capsules were poison? Little that inconsiderate neophyte cared, too busy having his palm read by this rag-headed charlatan.
I see.
To Tech, it sounded more like the sinner was getting neutered, not seeing the future. But Tech didn't care. He had his own problems, his own pain to deal with. Pain? All Tech felt now was a cool sensation of blue. The aching had abruptly slipped from his limbs, especially his shoulder. He tried a small rotation with it, then stretched out his arm. No more pain. He wasn't even tired anymore. Tech squeezed his nose gently. Still broken, but no pain. When he got back to the Star Cruiser, he could analyze the pill's properties and make a killing on the intergalactic pharmaceutical black market.
I see great power, enormous strength. Aegis!
The hag nearly fell off her stool in her frumpish efforts to get away from Video. Understandable, but Tech didn't quite get why she seemed so afraid. Dear healer, what is wrong? Video's soothing ramblings failed to pacify the hag as he backed her into a wall.
Leave me be,
she cried before disappearing into a cloud of black smoke. A cheap exit, Tech noted, heightened by the fact that she had used it for an opener. 11. I think we better leave. Video turned to find his technician striding towards a table with sticks and balls, technician utility belt reclaimed and slung over Tech's once crippled shoulder. Techie, are your bodily
functions still functioning? You bet.
Techie, now that you're feeling better, should we not look for Solomon?
Ease up already.
Tech clipped his utility belt back on and stationed himself at the table with the interesting little game of sticks and balls.
Our mission is to sell these third-world idiots on Video Exchange, not play hide-and-go-pee with gluteus surfers.
Well said. Video kept close. Do you really think we'll find any dignitaries here? What kind of place is this?
It's called a tavern. There's bound to be plenty of politicians here, and knowing sinners, it probably doubles as a whorehouse.
What is a whorehouse?
Oh, grow up.
The game was called Cue Ball. Primitive, but it was fun taking these sinners' money. Tech drew a large crowd in no time, while Video busied himself boring anyone close enough about peace and love and video content sharing. You're cheating! Tech's oversized, red-faced opponent jabbed a thick finger into Tech's delicate, flat chest.
Who needs to cheat?
Tech waved him away and aimed his mighty stick.
A little neo-trigonometry, the right bit of pressure.
The black ball shot easily into the last hole.
Now pay up.
The sinner grabbed Tech by the throat. Smelling blood, the entire tavern crowded around them. Video tapped the brute on the back. What the hell do you want? The brute bellowed. For you to release my friend, please.
That's right. Release me or my dear friend here will beat you to a pulp.
Tech calculated the pleasing but remote possibility of the brute exchanging him for Video. Is that so? The sinner was almost twice Video's width. I wish you no harm, kind sir. Video smiled. I wish only for you to release my technician. The crowd, all of them unbathed, it seemed, started closing in. Terminate the aliens! Someone shouted.
Yeah, just to the aliens!
Stop! Tech realized he had been holding his breath. Video's voice was strong and unusually authoritative. To be honest, Tech didn't even see the neophyte move his lips. True, we are here from another galaxy, but we've come to bring you love and video technology.
Besides, I'm not his friend, Tech said. Terminate him, not me.
The brute released Tech's collar. Well, are you a sinner?
Goddess, no.
Oops. The brute seized Tech by the throat a second time. He snatched up Video with his other hand. The mob started grabbing at both of them. This was it. Tech's greatest fear realized. Him, Tech, Star Navigator Third Class and Super Genius, dying side by side with this mewling, muscle-headed neophyte.
Let them go.
Crap. The gluteus surfer had found them, and his obscenely large liquidator was pointed right at Tech.
Mind your own business, or you're next.
The brute increased the pressure on Tech and Video's throats, then screamed. Everybody made way as the brute clawed at the hole smoldering in his back, his flesh sizzling. The red-faced brute continued to scream and thrash, eventually collapsing onto the floor. I never thought I'd be glad to see a gluteus surfer. The gluteus surfer slapped Tech in his beautiful face. But did he slap Musclehead? No. Thank you for your assistance, friend Solomon. But did you really have to liquidate the poor soul?
Shut up, both of you. We're getting out of here.
The gluteus surfer led them to the front door, or attempted to. Yellow-clad peace ministers and a bleach-blonde bimbo blocked their way, each of them armed with impressive liquidators. Greetings, aliens, the leather-clad blonde bimbo said, psycho green eyes smug with sinful confidence. I am your illustrious Supreme Prime Minister of Peace, Petra. The place exploded into chaos, swarms of sinners trying to force themselves through too few exits. The psycho green eyes scanned the three of them with greedy disinterest before settling on Video. And who might you be, practically naked, dark-skinned warrior, who has just fallen into my ruthlessly warm and sensuous arms? I am Commander Video. No, the bimbo said. You're dead meat. Ministers? Fire! 12. Petra had never seen a god before. Everyone, of course, knew what they looked like. Usually Homo sapien in appearance, give or take an appendage or two, and every god possessed glowing red eyes and no pupils. They came in a variety of colors, from white gold to the blackest desert night. The darker the god, the blacker its thoughts, and the more power it wielded. Commander Video had all the makings of a god. So, how do you like the palace dungeon, alien spittle? Petra said, her husky voice all business. Commander Video smiled weakly. Well, it is a bit dark, and could definitely use a coat of nebula white paint, but at least I have these shackles to hold my hands up in case my arms get tired. Do not test my patience, Dark One. Petra ventured nearer and looked the alien straight in the eye, because he was an alien, not some god. Tell me about your invasion plans. Don't deny it. Don't make me use my enhanced interrogation techniques to get you to confess. Confess, Minister Supreme? I'm afraid I do not understand. You see, my binary language bio-wristband was damaged when my Lightwave Star Cruiser crashed. So, how many Star Cruisers are in your fleet? The Lightwave Star Cruiser is one of a kind, a prototype. Lies, Petra hissed, grabbing the dark alien by the two straps which formed a seductive X across his impressive, sweaty thorax and pectorals. Do you think you can toy with me? Petra demanded, simply because I have a body that begs to be played with, time and time again? These juicy red lips weren't meant to be sullied by the likes of you, nor were my milky white quadriceps meant to be caressed by hot, needy alien hands, our tongues joined as one, until we both cry out in one totally incredible and indescribable erupting chorus. Petra smacked the alien's face. Keep your disgusting alien thoughts to yourself. Petra gave Commander Video her back, partly to be rude, partly to nurse her throbbing hand. Thankfully, she had chosen to interview him alone. Her hand felt like she slapped a wall instead of Commander Video's handsome face. Well, I do like the idea of a chorus, Minister Supreme, and answering any questions that you might have is partly my mission on Synthra. Really? Petra spun back around and aimed her luscious lips at the vile alien. Then answer a few simple questions for me. What is your true mission on Synthra? How big is your invasion force? Why did the zoetrope cross the road? The dark eyes feigned confusion. Could we go back to the first question? Petra spit on his disgusting, lickable alien face. You have the audacity to play clever with me. Me, the illustriously luxurious Supreme Prime Minister of Peace. Well, you'll pay for your impotence. Do you want to end up like your friend, Dirt? Who? Dirt. The one you call Techie.
On cue, the secret dungeon wall trembled and gradually stuttered open. A small stone stopped its progress. Petra sighed before marching forward and kicking the stone so the wall could completely disappear. Dirt was dangling nicely, its feet chained to the adjacent cell's ceiling, flanked by two of Petra's best ministers. She briefly wondered how many seconds it would take to pry that metal skull cap from its block-sized alien head. The impudent sinner who had originally captured the aliens dangled beside the black and blue alien without complaint. So many lovely red bruises all over his sweaty body. Perhaps, if she felt merciful, she might allow the sinner a sample of her carnivorous pleasures after she was done with the equally tempting Commander Video.
Techie, are your bodily functions still functioning?
This is all your fault. 13. Petra's peace ministers hit the black and blue creature below the belt. Dirt's scream was heart-wrenching. Petra licked her wet, inviting lips at the possibilities.
Minister Supreme!
Commander Video's black eyes were filled with unspeakable horror.
How could you liquidate a tavern full of innocents and now torture my friends?
Petra kept her smile on her dangling interviewees instead of directly addressing Commander Video.
For the same reason I'm going to torture you. Information, and because I like it. As for the tavern vermin, Petra turned her green gaze on Solomon. I have special plans for you. No room for witnesses.
Stow the political babble, wench, Solomon said, and terminate us already. Petra's ministers struck him hard in the chest with their reflective yellow boots. The whelp didn't even cry out. It was hard not to salivate over this male. Still, business first.
Your opinions are irrelevant, heathen.
Petra sashayed menacingly towards this audacious and studly sinner.
You're not from the city. That, or you're too stupid to be afraid of me.
He's stupid and a gluteus surfer, cried Dirt. A gluteus surfer? Petra grabbed the sinner by the gonads.
Is this true?
The heathen managed a pained smile.
Minister Supreme, I must insist upon seeing the president of Synthra, and please stop playing with my friends.
Petra turned her righteous fury against Commander Video. Then stop lying to me. She was on the alien in seconds.
Neophytes do not lie. Another lie. But don't worry, Commander.
Petra gave his sweaty thorax a tentative lick, momentarily being distracted by the etching on his black amulet. The strange sun reminded her of something. Something wicked. It would come to her, probably as easy as the prophecy unfolding before her.
I'm going to take great pleasure,
Petra said, luscious lips tight,
in extracting every dripping ounce of your darkest secrets. Prepare for pain. And for the worst horizontal refreshment of your life.
Petra's ministers started pounding the gluteus surfer with their liquidators. With all of those nasty bruises and blood that were sure to come at this rate, how would she be able to keep her hands off of him? Supreme Prime Minister of Peace Petra, bring the aliens to the President's Chambers suite immediately. Petra sighed, considering whether she should risk another blow upon this worthless sinner, or at the very least, lick Commander Video's sweaty mandibula one more time. Better not. Her ministers were watching, and Milcom was sure to be in a mood. But on her dishonor, she was not going to share this crafty alien with anyone. 14. I believe in a higher power, President Milcom said, thankful he had chosen to wear his extra support lifts today. These aliens were insufferably tall. Do you believe, Commander?
All neophytes believe in the light of the universe, Mr. President.
All? Milcom suppressed a smile. He had opted to receive the aliens in the presidential reception suite. It wasn't quite the highest floor in the city, but it did offer an impressive 360. When it came to unknown variables like aliens, first impressions were paramount.
4 of Petra's ministers flanked the one called Commander Video and the scrawny black and blue creature the tapes suggested was his pet. Petra stationed herself close to Milcom's right, 2 steps behind.
Has anyone ever told you that you look like a god?
Milcom scanned the dark alien with bemused interest. You are the first, Mr. President. A faceless male attendant passed Milcom 2 glasses of deep blue tide and promptly disappeared. Commander Video accepted Milcom's proffered drink with a friendly nod. The gesture was meek, but the way in which the alien carried himself suggested military or nobility. Possibly both. Hey, what about me? I'm thirsty too. Milcom raised his pinky, signaling Petra not to deliver the well-deserved kick to Commander Video's pet, Dirt. The alien passed the drink to his pet, who slurped it up with the grace of a hungry cur. Commander Video ignored the armed ministers and moved over to a shielded window. The alien's undulating movements struck Milcom as smooth and silent as liquid, and his dark beauty remained untouched by the green-tinted sunlight streaming through the magnificent windows that lined the spacious suite. Mercifully, the AC hadn't broken down today. Such an interruption would crack the illusion. The outrageously expensive and decadent buffet was also part of the illusion. The very finest synthetics in dining cuisine. Granted, a plate of real lizard meat might have been better, but why waste such delicacies on aliens who wear pink shorts? Milcom studied the alien observing the city below, while his pet made a pig of itself at the buffet table. Commander Video stood in such a way that he could take in much of Cromenia's beauty, while keeping an eye on Milcom. Military. Definitely. So, are you? Milcom kept his tone casual, drawing closer to the alien. Am I what? A god. A god. This moron? Talking pets. What a horrible world Commander Video must come from. The too tall alien offered Milcom a subdued smile, making Milcom's stomach knot at the sheer eeriness of how similar this alien looked to he and his fellow sinners. To the best of my knowledge, Mr. President, I am a neophyte, and nothing more. Can we cut to the chase already? Dirt said in between bites, so we can get off this waste bin of a planet. I'm a Star Navigator apprentice, 3rd class, and super genius from the planet Ingenia, and this, he nodded toward Commander Video, comes from the planet Neophytes, Sector 101 of the Elysium Galaxy. Milcom guided Commander Video by the elbow to a plush seat, while his pet returned to gorging itself. Milcom remained standing to subliminally enforce his station. He was close enough to the alien to detect some kind of scent, but found none. The fact that Petra's lustful eyes surreptitiously drifted to Commander Video's amulet, however, did not escape him. The harlot was plotting something, undoubtedly against him. If only aliens were as transparent as his Minister Supreme. Milcom changed tactics.
Did you share horizontal refreshment with the gluteus surfer?
Commander Video shook his dark, small curls. I do not quite grasp your meaning, Mr. President. He lifted up his right wrist. I am afraid the binary language translator on my bio-wristband was damaged when our star cruiser crashed upon your planet. Lies, Milcom, Petra said, not even having the courtesy to address him by title in front of inferiors and aliens. His pet doesn't wear one, and I wager he understands when I say that we poisoned his drink. 15. Poisoned? Commander Video's black eyes took on a vacuous light. These primitives drugged me, you insipid neophyte, his pet cried, dropping its plate. I'm sentenced to death, terminated, assassinated, expunged, deleted, wiped out. Like sleep? The black and blue creature flung itself from the table and threw itself at Milcom's feet, making his minister's trigger fingers uneasy. Please, don't snuff out the greatest mind in the galaxy. I'll tell you everything. It pointed a bony finger at Commander Video. Especially what an idiot this guy is. Do you read minds? Petra said. Is that how you communicate with us? Commander Video's pet shook its too large cranium. Anyone who comes in contact with me is immediately infected with a virus. Dirt's eyes bugged out, Petra's minister's big liquidators suddenly in its face. Recovering, it pushed the rifles away and stood up. It's a benign virus, morons. It allows anyone infected to speak and understand binary code, thus universal communication.
Why does Commander Video have a wristband instead of the virus?
Milcom's smile remained tight. His stupid body rejects viruses. Satisfied for the moment, Milcom put a small hand on Commander Video's muscular, broad shoulder.
What brings you to Synthra?
To bring you love. Lightwave Ultra Video. Speak for yourself, said Dirt. Milcom wondered why Commander Video didn't strike it down. Indulgence upon a spoiled pet? Like he spoiled Cersei? Milcom helped himself to a seat opposite Commander Video, not bothering to cross his stubby legs. Petra immediately positioned herself behind his chair, presumably to protect Milcom should the aliens turn rabid and attack. Harlot. She and Milcom both knew she would love to have someone execute him for her.
How do you plan to serve us?
Milcom removed the titanium silver garland from his graying temples and tossed it to the carpet between him and Commander Video, right next to the alien's big feet. The raven eyes held Milcom's, not once lowering themselves to the shiny object on the floor. Nobility. Definitely nobility. I will serve you by assisting you out of this radio age and into the biotechnical universe of video. Imagine, the dark voice entreated, hundreds, perhaps thousands of civilizations and interesting cultures awaiting your viewing pleasure. More lies, Milcom. These aliens are the first in an invasion force, undoubtedly missioned to wipe out Synthra. Milcom ignored Petra.
What kind of programming do you offer?
You name it. Dirt had taken up stuffing its mouth with food again. That drink really wasn't poison, right? Be at peace, Techie. I am confident that the Supreme Prime Minister of Peace was only teasing. Commander Video turned his godlike features back to Milcom. Through our Friends and Family program, you can view such wonderful and interesting shows like Fast Motion Fossil Decay and Pandorian Amoebas Sunbathing.
Tempting.
Milcom, you're not lapping up these fabrications. Milcom raised the back of his hand, but Petra ignored him and aimed an accusing finger at the dark alien. Don't be deceived by those delicious black alien eyes, which promise the pleasures of deep space. Notice how his foul alien lips quiver whenever he speaks of video and sunbathing amoebas, or the way his triceps shake when... Petra took in the 4 rifles aimed at her flushed face and nodded an apology at Milcom. Milcom turned back to the alien, his smile once again engaging and warm.
Sometimes my Minister Supreme forgets her manners. Please continue, Commander.
The dark, muscled alien nodded. Intergalactic video content exchange will surely bring love, knowledge, and peace to the entire civilized universe. Commander Video bent down on one knee and retrieved Milcom's garland. The sultry eyes returned to Milcom, knowing that he had piqued his interest. The long, warm fingers placed the wreath gently upon Milcom's whitening temples. He allowed the alien to lead him from his seat to a floor-length window. Was this neophyte trying to seduce the seducer? 16. Look, Mr. President. The alien's voice reminded Milcom of soothing music. See what you cannot see. Picture a future where sinners can communicate with other worlds, new thoughts and ideas. An integrated galactic communications system will provide your people with visual and audio programming that will entertain, inform, and educate. The confidence in the bottomless voice was distinct. Definitely nobility, with a military background.
A very convincing argument, Commander Video, Milcom said. But surely your benefactors have at least some reservations about handing over such advanced technology to an inferior culture like Synthra.
President Milcom. The alien's muscular arm found its way around his shoulder with the ease of a politician. There is no such thing as inferior cultures. Some civilizations are technologically more advanced than others, but in the eyes of the universe, everyone is the same. Milcom looked up into the inviting eyes. So black, so endless. He shrugged the muscled arm off of him, leaving the alien and the view of Chromenia for today's buffet.
He helped himself to another glass of blue tide.
Nice rhetoric, Commander. But exactly what are you going to do to bring Synthra into your universe of video?
Sheol and its artificial subsidiary planet, Intergalactic Video and Technology, have granted you a pre-approved line of credit for light ultra video hardware and software. LOVE, for short.
What do I have to do to gain such a great deal for my people?
Just say yes.
And?
Nothing more. However, it would be an especially nice gesture on your part if you were to give my technician an antidote to the poison and free my friend Solomon from your dungeon.
Milcom examined the neophyte once more. It was vaguely possible the alien was in fact a mythological neophyte, but it remained abundantly clear that he was a fast learner. And too tall. It was a truly unjust universe if all aliens were as tall as these two. Milcom snapped a finger. The faceless ministers grabbed Commander Video and his protesting pet.
Thank you for your generous offer, Commander, but intergalactic communication is the last thing I want, and I certainly have no intention of letting sinners know what they're missing.
Why refuse our offer? We might bring life to your dying world.
True, at the expense of my power base. Enlightenment breeds dissatisfaction. Don't worry, though. That drink really wasn't poison. But soon you'll wish it were.
Milcom nodded to Petra, his signal to have the aliens exterminated. Bowing slightly, Petra's white tresses spilled obediently toward the floor, an evil twinkle in her green, greedy eyes. Yes, the harlot was definitely up to something. 17. Solomon absolutely refused to let these armpit-sucking minister pukes break him. Strapped to a reclining metal chair, legs up and his head parallel to a black shiny floor that bordered on immaculate, Solomon was almost as uncomfortable as when they had hung him upside down. But the puke ministers attending him would find out soon enough that torture was little more than foreplay to him. Sure, the 50 laser lashes hurt, but Solomon had done more than double that number in some of Chromenia's more upscale brothels. The rotisserie clubbing was no joke either, but being forced to listen to the peace ministers sing holiday medleys was starting to wear him down. Solomon almost lost his cookies when the ministers followed the holiday medleys with a selection of Exalted Supreme Minister of Peace Petra, songs that matter to her. He wasn't sure how long Video had been gone. Solomon wasn't even sure when the so-called alien became Video instead of just plain alien puke. Obviously, the torture was starting to get to him. His reclining chair was equipped with a cheap headset with a metal extension that forced his eyelids to stay open while he watched two disgustingly naked ministers kiss each other. That motherless whore Petra definitely knew how to torture a guy. Even if Solomon could escape from the chair and shove his fists down these two whores' throats, the two ministers at the door would shoot him down in seconds. The room's gray door slid open with a swoosh. Supreme whore Petra stepped in and stared Solomon straight in the eye.
Prepare to die, infidel.
She fired twice. The two gate ministers splattered to the floor. The Minister Supreme's two mini-liquidators were still smoking. Her two naked minister performers raised their hands in defeat. The Minister Supreme smiled, then shot her ministers full of holes.
You're freeing me?
Mouth dry, Solomon could barely get the words out or believe what he was seeing. The Minister Supreme nodded and aimed both liquidators at Solomon.
Freeing you from this life, pervert.
Video and his pet stumbled into the room. Whorish eyes still on Solomon, the Minister Supreme reholstered her liquidators and winked at him.
Supreme Minister of Peace Petra, your ministers look not well.
They're praying. The Minister Supreme freed Solomon from the chair's metal clamps in two practiced motions. Do we have to free the primate? Black and Blue said, stuffing his silver pockets with small torture instruments and anything that looked remotely useful. Video gave Solomon a strong hug. Solomon took a moment to enjoy Video's heat. He gave the envious Minister Supreme a flirtatious wink.
Techie, surely you would not want to leave Solomon to certain doom.
And pay a fortune and my family heirloom utility belt to have you join him.
I'll remember that, puke. Rubbing his bruised red wrists, Solomon shouldered past Video's pet. Silence! We need to remove ourselves as quietly and sinfully as possible. The Minister Supreme marched out of the room and down the passageway. Dominating, self-centered, cruel whore, Solomon thought. Just his type. Too bad she's female. 18. Slipping out of the dungeon undetected proved predictably simple. Escaping the presidential palace would be the true test. Petra led the aliens and Gluteus Surfer through a secret passageway she had installed 3 revolutions ago. Perchance Milcom wised up and imprisoned her. For the right price, the vile black and blue creature called Dirt offered. I can set this dumpy passageway up with some decent track lighting. Then I would be forced to cauterize your throat like I did its builders. Dirt hiccuped. Fearful, base creature. She hated Video for putting up with it. Video, the Gluteus Surfer said. You're crazy to trust this deceitful whore. Hold your tongue, Surfer, Petra said, not missing a step or turn in the maze of dark halls. Or, at the very least, put it in a place where it can be useful. The insolent whelp mulled that one over for a good 10 seconds before opening his foul mouth again. Hey, Petra, how about loaning me one of your weapons, seeing we're fellow escapees and all? Certainly, Petra said, not looking back. The 2 mini liquidators and grenades attached to her luscious, undulating hips felt good. Almost as good as the armor-piercing mini-cannon on her back. Your choice of weapons the moment you start dressing like Video. The tall alien known as Video remained strangely silent as Petra led them to the end of the last hall. Perhaps he was telepathically communicating with his fleet, or were such stories made up for gullible, sinful children? Small matter. Petra had designs of her own. Dirt aimed his belt at the wall, then looked up, frowning. I sympathize with you sinners being retarded and all, but even you must realize that leading us to a solid titanium wall is a poor escape plan. Instead of melting the black and blue creature, Petra silhouetted herself against the wall, hands seductively placed on her voluptuously tempting hips. She pointed a knowing finger at the ceiling. How clever, Video said, full pink lips curling into a deliciously simple smile. A black hole. Kind of out of reach, don't you think? Petra ignored the Gluteus Surfer and kept her eyes on Video as she stepped directly beneath the hole and immediately found herself spiraling upward and through its dark center. The heathens followed seconds later. Wonderful! Video landed softly beside Petra. That was fun! Fun, my perfectly shaped gluteus. The black and blue creature landed on its head. Figures. Are you going to lead us out of this city so we can get off your dumpy planet or what? Petra raised a gloved hand to silence the insect, but a familiar grating voice stopped her. 19. Old Baal Heyman, flabby arms and musty robes open, and white beard joyous, rushed them, bowing and scraping. Petra raised her hand to stop him from bringing his filthy, sweaty body too close. This forced him to lick the back of her hand from a respectful distance. Any news of a recent escape from the palace? Baal Heyman shook his turbaned head violently. No, your exalted Supreme Minister of Peace. Baal Heyman's mildly inebriated eyes finally looked past Petra, inhaling the sight of Video's dark, muscular form. Gods! Baal Heyman dropped Petra's hand for Video's and begged him to breathe life back into Synthra. Petra strangled a flash of envy. Baal Heyman's disrespect did not matter. For now, Video bid the fool merchant to rise. Baal Heyman turned back to Petra, toothless and all smiles. I knew, mistress, you would have need of my services someday. My tent shields your escape nicely, does it not? Escape? I mean, your expedient departure. Petra gave the foul merchant her back and reloaded her mini liquidators. The Gluteus Surfer watched her, lust or envy in his eyes. You think I allowed you a prime vending spot by the palace walls for magnanimous reasons?
Petra spun around and pointed a mini liquidator at Baal Heyman's covered forehead.
Mercy!
Video grabbed her wrist. Instinctively, Petra's left hand went for her second liquidator, but she stopped herself and allowed Video to lower her trigger hand.
Supreme Minister of Peace Petra.
Video's eyes remained deceptively kind.
We will not follow you out of this city if you persist in this unqualified violence.
We shouldn't follow her, period. The stupid gluteus surfer is right, Video. The black and blue creature rebuckled its utility belt. The blonde bimbo never even told us why she's risking her career and overly plump gluteus to help us. Petra willed her sultry features neutral before addressing the fools.
Perhaps I desire for Video to return to Synthra someday with friends. Is it so difficult to imagine that even a gorgeous, ambitious official lauds the opportunity for worker planetary exchange programs?
The gluteus surfer dared to hurl his vile spit at Petra's spit-shine boots. Right. Anyone who listens to Video for a minute realizes Synthra's not good for much more than slave labor. Video, Video, Video! The black and blue creature continued rummaging through the tent for food. What am I, dirt?
No, silly. You're a technician. And my navigator. You have something against slave labor, surfer?
Yeah, when I'm doing the labor. Petra pulled Baal Heyman to her and kneed him in the femur, just above his knee. He went down like a crate of his cheap transistor radios. Petra snatched her wrist cuffs from her belt and chained Baal Heyman to his portable stone stove.
Follow me,
Petra said, swinging the tent flap open.
Or remain behind and die.
20. These stupid disguises smell almost as much as this mob of idiot sinners. Shut up, alien puke, or you'll be smelling my fists, too. Alien puke, his gluteus. Lucky for this gluteus surfer that Tech didn't believe in violence, when there was a chance that he might get hurt. Crap. Follow the bimbo out of Chromenia in rags, or stay behind and get deleted by her minister goons? Some choice. Someone's going to get an earful if I don't get a shot of caffeine soon. Commander Dipstick shoved a brown cube in Tech's face.
Rub some Sumatra Dark Classic under your nose, Techie. Not only will its minty richness remind you of the coolness of deep space, it will also help heal your nose.
You're offering me aromatherapy when I'm dying of caffeine withdrawal? Will you pukes give it a rest already? The gluteus surfer, also draped in tacky sandy sheets, took up the rear.
Figures. The gluteus surfer is right, the bimbo said. If this crowd of filthy sinners suspect for one moment you're the aliens, we'll never make it out of this city alive.
Hey, Tech shot back. You said people thought we're gods. Oops. The crowd turned on them.
It's them! The gods!
Give us life!
Let me touch the gods!
Clammy, sinful hands tore at their flimsy disguises. Tech's artificially enhanced Ingenian vision spotted reflective yellow helmets turning in their direction. Damn! This was all Video's fault. And instead of smacking the crap out of these idiots, Dipstick chose to shake their hands like some politician on steroids.
Techie, is there not some way we can assist these poor creatures?
Definitely, but we need to be out of this solar system before I detonate it. The gluteus surfer, a head taller than most of the grabbing sinners crowding them, pointed north. 5 yellow reflective ministers were making their way toward them. The bimbo didn't seem worried, as a puffy hand disappeared into the top of her pleather jumpsuit and returned with 2 small shiny red cherries. The gluteus surfer smiled. Dipstick kept shaking hands while the bimbo tossed her cherries to the wind. 2 explosions followed. Mayhem came next, and Tech being crushed to death by panicking sinners. Head reeling, Tech felt a strong hand pull him from the tidal wave of feet. Tech allowed Dipstick to guide him towards the city square's one towering statue, Lafoot. Video, since you're the leader of this stupid mission, and the sole reason for my life being threatened,
Tex said. I demand to know what you plan to do to get us out of this mess. We will have to trust the Supreme Minister of Peace to show us the way, Techie. The Bimbo's peace ministers didn't stand a chance against the panicking crowd. Even with Dipstick's help, Tech was the last one to make it up the statue's pedestal. Amazing escape plan, Tech muttered, and was immediately caught up in a headlock, the Bimbo's mini-liquidator against his delicate, ingenian right temple. Video's retarded black eyes went wide. Supreme Minister of Peace Petra, what is the meaning of this overt act of aggression? A double-cross, the Bimbo said. Double-cross? Listen, insect. The Bimbo added extra pressure to Tech's neck. If I have to explain every little thing, we'll never get anywhere. The gluteus surfer stepped up. So why don't you spell it out for us, Minister Whore? The gluteus surfer swiveled his fat head in time to avoid a blast from the Bimbo's liquidator. Simple. Video takes his amulet and rubs it on Lefoot's heel, and an army of darkness comes forth to help me conquer Synthra. How diabolical, Video muttered. And brain dead, the gluteus surfer said. Fairy tales. If I refuse to assist you in such a maniacal scheme? The Bimbo smiled at Video as she pushed her mini-liquidator into Tech's temple. I melt your pet's face. 21. Perfect. Weaponless, a stampeding crowd below, and a rogue-armed minister trying to call forth an army of darkness. Solomon half wished he had never found Video and his pet. You're no deity, Video, the whore minister supreme spat, and you're certainly not as stupid as you pretend. Neophytes do not pretend, dear minister. Must be a cultural barrier. No way any space traveler could be so dumb, or wear shorts so short and tight to make even the hardest gluteus surfer blush. The Minister Supreme tightened her bleach-blonde chokehold on Black and Blue. Her smile was pink and sinister, and just for Video. You bear the sign of the one who shall open the gates of hell. Now rub your amulet on Lefoot's heel so I can summon my army of darkness, or you'll be picking up dirt from the ground. Black and Blue gurgled a feeble protest. The minister calmly pressed her mini-liquidator against its temple. Typical minister. Didn't give an extinct rhino's excrement that her fellow sinners were killing themselves down below in a stampede. Gates of hell, huh, minister? Solomon said, sounding casual despite the screams below. The Minister Supreme's liquidator was now aimed at him. You dare mock your superior? Superior in rank, but obviously not in brain power. You don't seriously believe that old husband's tale of some God falling from the heavens and opening a doorway to infinite power for some lucky sinner. The minister's fat, unpainted lips grew hard. Unfortunately, her liquidator stayed steady. God, alien, small matter. I believe only in my domination complete. What, too lazy to steal power the old-fashioned way? Assassination too good for you? Video jumped in front of Solomon before the Minister Supreme pulled the trigger a second time. What's with this crazy alien? Always risking his life for others. Well, that was his problem. The Minister Supreme's evil green gaze didn't budge, nor did her weapon. Was she really ready to blow a hole through Video to get rid of him? Your plan is doomed anyway, Solomon said. The Minister Supreme spun around just in time, so she only got a few split ends melted instead of her pasty pink face. To the whore's credit, she kept an impressive chokehold on Black and Blue and oscillated her liquidator between Video and the two squads of arriving peace ministers, cutting their way through the fleeing public. That whorehopper Milcom was leading the nearest squad. Attention, attention, please, Milcom said into a blue megaphone. This is your most glorious president. Drop your weapons, Petra, or I'll have your former ministers melt you into our city's favorite monument. Hi, Mr. President! Video waved enthusiastically. Have you reconsidered our Universal Gold Membership Galactic Saliva Swap program? How?
This was the first time Solomon caught uncertainty in the Minister Supreme's eyes. "How could you find us so quickly?" "Unless—" The whorish green eyes turned on Solomon. He gave the Minister Supreme his best feces-eating smile as he pulled a tracking coin from his pleather belt. "You traitorous, vile, heathen serpent," the Minister Supreme half whispered. Her evil eyes shifted to Milcom and his squad of ministers closing in, then back to Solomon. "You have potential, surfer, and my vow of personally delivering you to hell's tender gates." Solomon bowed slightly at the compliment. Sure, Milcom was using him, but that game worked both ways. Solomon's life and the wages he would have gotten from selling video and his pet at the slave market for leading him to Milcom's rogue Minister Supreme.
"Since we're all friends again," Video said, "would you mind releasing my technician?"
"Yes." Confidence returned to the evil green eyes. "As a gesture of friendship." Black and Blue squealed as the Minister Supreme shoved him forward, slamming him into Solomon. The two of them plunged off the statue. 22. A dark hand shot out, grabbing Solomon and Video's pet by their collars. Solomon's teeth rattled, but at least he didn't get splattered. Yet. "Video, you incompetent!" Larynx damaged from the minister's chokehold and Video's hold on his collar, Black and Blue couldn't quite get the insult out. Solomon's skin tingled. Then he heard a crackle of thunder. Solomon grabbed the statue's ledge to help Video pull him and Black and Blue back up on the pedestal. Video's left hand clutched Lefoot's big toe for support, and the cheesy amulet on his chest glowed a red that rivaled the sun. The wind started picking up, and it actually seemed to be coming from Lefoot's fallen arch. But for the moment, getting his hands around the Minister Supreme's tender white throat was all that mattered to Solomon. The whore had managed to climb to the opposite side of the statue. Two overzealous ministers made a mad rush for the statue. Mistake. The first minister took a hit in the leg and fell hard, screaming inside her helmet, no doubt over her melted appendage. The following shot took out half the second minister's head. The Minister Supreme had chosen a sniper's defense. Solomon would have gone for a full frontal defense, and Milcom too, apparently, the way he was using an unhappy minister for a shield. Then Solomon saw it. Two more squads of ministers headed their way, both carrying a positronic ray cannon apiece. The reinforcements gave Milcom the courage to step from behind his shield and start barking orders again. "What's with the house-blend positronic ray hardware?" Solomon shouted against the wind. "You're supposed to take the whore and aliens out, not me!" Milcom shrugged with mock helplessness. A whirlwind of black appeared inside Lefoot's fallen arch. The stampeding stopped. Everyone stared. Even Milcom and the peace ministers lowered their weapons to stare at the expanding, swirling blackness. Only the Minister Supreme didn't seem surprised or worried. The howling wind made it tough to concentrate. "I hereby crown myself Queen of Synthra." The Minister Supreme raised both black pleather arms into the air with insane zest. "Come forth, my army of darkness!" The wind stopped howling. The dark hole stopped swelling. Then, nothing. The Minister Supreme's pasty face morphed from psychotic exuberance to annoyance. "I said, come forth, my army of darkness!" "Petra, do not do this." Video's oddly attractive features turned serious. Solomon froze. A tall crystal floated out of the creepy circle of darkness. It was shaped like a sinner. Male, followed by another, and another. A wave of silence washed over the city square. The second creature looked just like its buddy, but it appeared to be made of stone. The last one radiated orange heat. Lefoot's pedestal had plenty of room, so the whore Minister Supreme had little trouble saddling up to the creatures for closer inspection. She didn't look happy. Video, his pet, and Solomon instinctively backed away from the creatures, being careful not to get too close to the statue's edge. There was something sinister about these creatures. Video surprised Solomon by signaling they should climb down. Now. Black and Blue looked like he might argue the point, but a second glance at their new visitors convinced him to keep his big mouth shut and follow orders for a change. Milcom and his squadron of ministers could have picked the three of them off like sand fleas, but they were totally mesmerized by the creatures, just like the rest of the crowd.
"I am ice," the crystal creature said. "I am an army of one."
"Earth," Stoneface said. "I am an army of one."
"Call me fire, and I am an army of one."
"You look like an army of three," Solomon thought he heard the Minister Supreme say. "And that's no army. Let's hope you're more powerful than you look. Destroy Milcom and my traitorous ministers." 23. Even at the bottom of the statue, Solomon heard the thunderous slap. Hell, anyone halfway across the city must have heard it.
"Foolish sinner!
The Skeleton Three take orders from no one,
Especially from a pathetic mortal female."
"Incoming bimbo!" Black and Blue cried. Solomon had to admit, Video's scrawny pet could run fast when he wanted to. The Minister Supreme's pleather form grew bigger as she plunged from the statue towards them. Solomon slid over a couple of steps, but kept his back away from Milcom and his shocked ministers. He wanted to live to see the Minister Supreme get splattered. Only Video held his ground, and actually caught the whore in his arms. Solomon knew that even he couldn't pull that stunt off without breaking a spinal cord or something. Black and Blue abandoned them and raced for the crowd, most of whom weren't sure whether to be afraid of the creatures or to worship them. The rocky freak floated above and past Solomon slowly, bitch-slapping what little Solomon knew of physics. Video's pet almost made the crowd. Stony lifted a bony arm in Black and Blue's direction. The earth trembled, then cracked. Mouth agape, Solomon tried to convince himself that he wasn't watching a fissure tear through the dusty ground and chase Video's pet into the screaming crowd.
"Run, tuck, and roll, Techie!"
Video cried out. Too late. Black and Blue and a good 100 sinners were swallowed up into the expanding ground. Guess the guy really was an army of one. Milcom, though short and gray around the edges, was no punk either. He had shed his initial inertia and was barking orders with the best of them. The city square melted into total chaos, but even the rampaging masses made way for the mecho tanks headed toward the Skeleton Three. The tanks managed a haphazard defensive formation before blasting Stoneface back to hell. Then the smoke cleared. Disintegrated, all right, just the gray rags he was wearing. Old Stony still hovered above the square unscathed and a little pissed. It turned its bulky head toward the statue and its brothers.
"The insects have destroyed my beautiful clothes."
"We should teach the foolish insects a lesson,"
the Crystal Warrior said.
"Let's kick some gluteus."
The Fire Warrior glowed brighter, deteriorating from orange to a sickly red. He nodded at each mecho tank that made up Milcom's defense formation. Milcom continued spouting orders into his megaphone until he noticed that his dull gray mecho tanks were glowing bright red and radiating a lot of heat, judging by the way the ministers were running back toward the city's innards. Solomon shielded his eyes and dove for the ground before the explosions, which didn't stop his ears from clanging war bells or stop a piece of what looked like a mecho tank plate landing micromillimeters from his face. Hearing the countless screams and raging fires kept Solomon down, but not from stealing a peek. Cromenia's city square was obliterated. Body parts, melted chunks of mecho tanks, and devil knows how many burning sinners. Surfer! Solomon rolled combat style and leapt to his feet, fist primed to strike hard. It was the Minister Supreme. 24. The Minister Supreme had a nasty bruise on the right side of her face, and Video was out of sight. She was aiming her remaining mini liquidator at him, a smug smile playing on her fat whore lips. Then she surprised Solomon. He expected her to melt him, not throw him her liquidator. With impressive ease, the Minister Supreme unsheathed the minfire cannon from her back and pointed it at Solomon. She swung the cannon up and blasted away for all she was worth. Solomon joined in on the fun. They hit the Crystal Warrior dead in the back, too.
bombarded the puke with streams of white, corrosive liquid. Oh, so sadly, it didn't fall from the sky with the anticipated agonized wail. Hell, it didn't even shudder. What it did do was slowly spin around in the air and lock eyes with Solomon and the Minister Supreme. It raised what looked like a crystal eyebrow. Solomon and the Minister Supreme froze. Literally. Hell, the cold. Every pore in Solomon's beat-up body screamed at the fierce chill that was suffocating him. His mind must have been turning into ice too, because it looked like he and the Minister Supreme were being encased in a block of ice. Impossible, especially when it had to be at least 50 Cs with the desert sun at its highest. Not only was Solomon seeing things, he was hearing them too. Music? No. Video. Saying something, but his mind was so cold, he couldn't even see Video moving his lips. Skeleton 3, I cannot allow you to harm this tortured people and planet further. Leave now. These words struck the three creatures harder than any of the weapons they had hit them with. The warriors, mouths agape, then focused again, floated closer to each other and stared down at Video, weaponless, except for his pink short shorts and glowing red amulet.
The small Aegis is right.
We're wasting precious time on vermin.
Destroy small Aegis first, planet next.
What was Video thinking? These guys had wasted a platoon of mecho tanks in the city square in minutes. A neophyte certainly didn't stand a chance. And Solomon could do nothing but freeze and cling on to his fading consciousness as the Skeleton 3 thrust their bony fists into the air, one after the other.
Ice.
Earth.
Fire. By our powers combined, we are the Skeleton 3.
For the second time today, Solomon felt the earth quake under his feet. Guess he and the Minister Supreme would be joining Video's pet. Volcanic gushers pushed through the surface, spurting fire in jagged succession, melting rock and flesh better than Solomon ever saw a liquidator do. Video stood his ground, even with the fiery gushers rushing straight for him, waiting till the last possible second to leap out of harm's way. That neophyte could certainly move, but the Skeleton 3 were just playing with him. The crystal one put his hand out first, palm down. Stoneface slapped his on top of his brother's. Fire Breath slapped his down last. A fiery crack of thunder split the skies. White flashes of lightning followed next, briefly reminding Solomon of the now red sun on Video's amulet. The neophyte's eyes stayed on the Skeleton 3. Solomon remembered seeing lightning once or twice as a young brat, but he didn't know it could switch from electric white to crushing brown and dull red, then back again. The Skeleton 3 wore smug smiles, reminding Solomon of the Minister Supreme. Devil, how he hoped the bitch would freeze to death before him. Flash after crashing flash streaked down from the eerie gray clouds above, drawing closer and closer to Video, until 3 fierce lightning bolts struck at him simultaneously from 3 sides. Video went down in flames. 25. Stupid neophyte. Why didn't he run and hide till he could make it back to his ship? The monsters turned bored eyes on the former city square. They scanned the rest of the city and smiled. More fun. Till they sensed something. Almost as one, the Skeleton 3 turned their block heads and cast their frowns upon what should have been a pile of neophyte ashes. Bruised, but still dark and strangely attractive, Video forced himself from his knees with a single, frustrated push. Solomon had never seen such intensity in those dark eyes. Video's amulet was glowing violently, but not red. The sun amulet was glowing a bright star white. The neophyte wasn't smiling. He wagged a dark finger at the creatures who had just toasted him and the city square. A strong hand snatched the amulet from the 2 straps that crisscrossed his masculine chest and aimed it at the Skeleton 3. Again, Solomon heard voices in his head.
No, mighty Aegis.
Please do not kill us.
We don't deserve to die.
Solomon's mind screamed out to Video to kill them if he could, slaughter the murderers. but all Solomon could do was silently try not to give in to the cold darkness overtaking him. Video nodded at the murderers and turned an appraising eye on Solomon and the Minister Supreme. Solomon felt a tingle of warmness. Video was pointing his amulet at him. Stupid! That's just what the Skeleton Three wanted him to do. The three warriors swooped down on the neophyte as one, but Video was ready for them. He slapped his amulet into his right hand and aimed it at Lafoot. A flash of blinding white light shot out of the amulet. The statue's explosion and the Skeleton Three's screams of agony died in unison. A white jet of light flared from what was once Cromenia's greatest monument up into the gray heavens. 26.
Initiating Star Cruiser scan. Scanning completed and confirmed. One unconscious gluteus surfer with frostbite, several third-degree burns, minor bruises, and a bad case of halitosis. Seated opposite him, a cheap, bleach-blonde slut, nursing wounds and a bruised ego, sinners both. Chief technician now at navigational controls. Goddess help us. Scanning. Perhaps these sinners aren't so bad after all. It appears the technician's nose was broken and his shoulder ligaments torn. Pity my crew vid audio tracker was only working intermittently. Scanning. Commander Video stationed at the command dais. No opened wounds or amputated limbs. Good.
Trick! The commander tapped at the star charts on his dais rail. Please activate the viewing mist and establish comms with President Milcom.
Certainly, Commander. And don't trouble yourself about my feelings being hurt because no one's bothered to ask me how I feel.
Because no one cares, said the inept technician.
Technician, thank the heavens you fell on a ledge instead of that bottomless fissure, or that you weren't injected with a painful serum that would make your organs burst one by one.
How are you feeling, Trick?
I've been better, Commander. It's no easy task repairing a lightwave star cruiser with so much internal damage, but you'll be pleased to learn that 93% of the damage sustained in our crash has, in fact, been repaired.
Video, the slut coughed. Who are you and Dirt speaking to? You don't have another female aboard your craft, do you?
For the moment, we have 2.3 males, if you include the technician. One tremendously integrated, resourceful computer, that's me, and a slut, that's you. Why do you ask?
Trick, comms, please.
Anything for you, Commander.
It amused Trick to see how the sinner slut's greedy eyes lit up in surprise as white mist shot up from the center of the control suite to the spiral ceiling. The president of Synthra looked startled at first, but to his credit, he instantly made his stumpy little features a mask. In the mist, his image looked more real than the actual president himself. The brown eyes feigned indifference as he scanned what he could see of the control suite, his gaze resting a little too long on the bleach-blonde slut. Trick was transmitting their signal through one of the many mirrors lining Milcom's presidential suite. His calculating eyes looked tired, but had no trouble focusing on the commander.
You wish to beg more favors, Commander Video?
I desire only to bid you farewell and wish you love and peace.
Please, the technician said, punching in their new course. No more long, boring speeches for a while, okay, Video?
The president gave the technician a quick, disgusted glance and said to the commander,
You can still leave your pet and we'll dispose of it for you.
Pet? Why, you... Trick! What the hell do you think you're doing, changing my course outline? One of these days, I swear I'm going to design a virus with your name on it. Ignoring the technician's pathetic attempts to override her navigation outline, Trick watched the slut carefully step up to the viewing mist. The slut's nose wrinkled at its sulfurous odor, but her eyes never wavered. Milcom, you will forfeit your worthless life for sparing me mine and sentencing me into exile. The president's brown eyes lost some of their hardness.
I expect nothing less from my Minister Supreme.
The slut, to Trick's surprise, gave a short, respectful bow of the head. then turned her back on the president, casting instead a thoughtful eye on the snoring gluteus surfer. She probably wasn't even aware that they had already lifted off.
"Do not return video in my lifetime," the president said. "I have a world to rebuild, and there's no room for gods or aliens."
The commander bowed his head.
"As the president wishes."
"But thank you for the stones, for life."
Life?
Scanning. The destruction of the sinner's precious statue discharged level 3 quantum and chi energies into the planet's stratosphere. Energies subsequently came into contact with the remnants of the garbage satellite, loaded with carbon peroxide and hair dye that the technician had earlier steered us into.
Trick replaced the president's image with Synthra's small solar system, 8 planets and a 0.4 red star. The commander smiled and looked past the viewing mist at the waking gluteus surfer.
"Did I miss anything?"
The slut rolled her eyes. The technician reached under the nav console for his stash of caffeine pills, and the commander shifted his heart-shaped lips into what Trick's sensors told her must be a perfect smile.
Scanning complete and confirmed. Synthra experiencing its first substantial rainfall in 2 centuries. Apparently, the commander did give the planet life, and all he got was a bad case of gluteus surfer and a bossy bleach blonde slut.